San Francisco's morning fog blurred the outlines of buildings like a watercolor, allowing the first rays of sunlight to break through the haze like timid hopes. I, a mere casual passerby, hurried about my business, absorbed in the rhythm of this contrasting city where luxury neighbors, poverty, and dreams collide with harsh reality. At this hour of the morning, when the city was just waking up, the silhouette of a lone man caught my attention. He sat on the sidewalk like a shadow cast by the bright light of life. His tired look and sad eyes betrayed a long struggle with hopelessness. He seemed lost in the rushing stream, as if invisible, like a ghost, a reminder of those we prefer not to notice. And suddenly, as if from another world, he appeared, Elon Musk. His figure, full of energy and confidence, contrasted sharply with the image of a homeless man. It was like a collision of two realities, two parallel worlds. It seemed that space itself froze for a moment, anticipating something unusual. I involuntarily slowed my step, becoming a mute witness to the scene. Musk didn't seem to notice me. His gaze focused on this lone man. I had a strange feeling that something momentous was about to happen, that this fleeting dialogue would change something important. He stood before him like a seer, and everything around him seemed unimportant. What would happen next? His heart sank in anticipation. The morning fog that enveloped San Francisco, like a curtain before a theater production, was thickening around us. I, a mere observer, lost in the flow of people going about their business, suddenly froze. My gaze involuntarily lingered on the scene unfolding in front of me. A homeless man, hunched under the weight, it seemed, not so much physical as mental, sat on the cold sidewalk. A spark of hope suddenly flashed in his eyes, full of fatigue and doom, when he saw Elon Musk approaching. Gathering his last strength, he said, barely audibly, as if afraid to scare away this fragile opportunity, "Can you give me $1?" There was not only desperation in that question, but also a timid plea for help, for being noticed, for not being passed over. I could see his hands trembling slightly, his hands clutching the hem of his threadbare coat as if trying to hold on to a slipping hope. Musk was silent. His gaze seemed to penetrate to the very depths of the homeless man's soul, and that silence made it all the more uncomfortable. The seconds dragged on for an agonizingly long time, as if time had decided to stop to allow us to feel the full weight of the moment. There was a challenge in that silence, a mystery that made my heart beat faster. How often we, caught up in the whirlwind of our own affairs, pass by someone else's distress without noticing the pain that may be just around the corner. This scene, like a mirror, reflected our own callousness, our unwillingness to slow down and look around. This man's request, simple and straightforward, suddenly collided with an unexpected wall of silence, creating a tension you could touch with your hands. It seemed that in this brief dialogue, or rather in its absence, there was some deep philosophical reflection on compassion and indifference, on how we decide who to help and who to leave to their fate. Something was brewing in that silence, something that was about to break through, something that was going to change the course of this seemingly ordinary morning meeting. His answer, I felt, would be something more than a simple decision to give or withhold $1. The moment hung in the air as if time itself held its breath. The silence between them became almost palpable, and I, a bystander to the encounter, felt its tension with every cell in my body. Musk seemed finally to dare to break the silence, and I, like the homeless man himself, froze in anticipation. But what followed was not at all what one might have expected. No quick gesture, no outstretched bills. Instead, his voice, calm and steady, sounded like a thunderclap. He didn't just hold out $1, he offered something much more. The words he spoke made me wince, and the homeless man's face showed confusion bordering on disbelief. I saw his eyebrows shoot upward, his gaze, hitherto dull, begin to flash with tiny sparks of surprise. It wasn't the kind of response you'd expect from a billionaire who might easily be considered indifferent to other people's troubles. I was stunned myself. I felt as if the usual logic of this world had failed, and something completely different was unfolding before us. Through the mask of outward detachment, I began to see something else in his eyes, a deep understanding of human nature, a realization that real help goes far beyond a simple handout. He wasn't just responding to a request, he was seeing a person in front of him whose potential may not yet have been realized. And in that moment, when his words, imbued with some strange and unexpected wisdom, reached the homeless man's ears, everything turned upside down. Musk's response was the culmination of this brief but so meaningful encounter, and in that moment I realized that the story was just beginning. It opened a new chapter where there was no room for the usual cliches, and this new twist seemed to promise more than just a story about a dollar served. The moment the silence hung between them like a taut string, I saw something that took my breath away. Musk didn't hold out $1. He offered something more, something that seemed to transcend ordinary understanding. His words were not condescension, but rather a challenge, a call to action. The homeless man, stunned at first, looked at him in disbelief, his eyes reading a spectrum of emotions from confusion to barely budding hope. It was like someone offering a drowning man not a life preserver, but a chance to learn to swim. Musk began to speak, and his words, like tiny seeds, began to germinate in the homeless man's mind. He spoke not of money, but of opportunity, of the potential slumbering in every person, even those who seemed to have lost everything. He talked about projects, about work, about the chance to not just survive, but to start living for real. I could see the disbelief on the homeless man's face slowly being replaced by interest, and then a faint glimmer of hope. He seemed confused, but at the same time intrigued. Musk didn't just talk, he acted. He pulled out his phone, started typing something, showing the homeless man some images, some diagrams. He was engaging him in the process as if it were his own project. I saw the homeless man, oblivious to his situation, begin to ask questions, to show curiosity. It was as if someone had brought back his forgotten sense of wonder, his desire to learn new things. He was no longer just a homeless person, he was a person who had been given the opportunity to be someone else. It wasn't just an act of mercy, it was more than that. It was an offer to change lives, not through a handout, but through self-actualization. It was a chance to break out of the cycle, to see the world through different eyes, to feel my own worth. I saw a new story emerging. Someone's life seemed to turn 180 degrees. But how that person would change, what path he or she would embark on, and what lay ahead of him or her, that's a whole other story. Some time passed, and fate, like a skillful director, brought me back together with that homeless man. But it was not the same person I saw then, sitting on the cold sidewalk with an outstretched hand. His gaze, previously dull and full of hopelessness, now sparkled with genuine energy. He moved with confidence, as if the mountain he had once thought insurmountable had suddenly become a mere stepping stone in his path. His clothes, though not luxurious, now looked neat, and his posture showed an inner strength that had not been there before. The transformation was striking, as if he had shed his old skin and put on a new one. There was no more despair in his eyes, only keen interest and purpose. He didn't just exist, he lived, breathing in each new day with gratitude and anticipation. He talked about his new plans, about the ideas that, like seeds, had sprouted in his mind after that unexpected meeting. He talked about opportunities that had been invisible to him before, as if they were obscured by a shroud of hopelessness. He had found a job, and not just any job, but a cause that ignited his heart. He talked about the projects he was now involved in, how his ideas were becoming a reality, how he was changing the world around him, albeit on a small scale, but with great enthusiasm. It was like a miracle, a fairy tale come true. The man who seemed to have been thrown to the bottom by life suddenly took off, spreading his wings, which he did not even know about. It was as if he was reborn, transformed not only externally, but also internally. His perception of the world changed. He began to see possibilities where before there was only despair. It was unbelievable, but it was real. It proved that even in the darkest corners of life there is light, that even in the most seemingly hopeless situations there is a way out, that everyone is capable of change if they believe in themselves and their power. This case was a reminder to me that the human will is a powerful force that can work miracles. It was a story not only about the homeless man, but about each of us and our capacity for growth and transformation. But that is only one facet of this amazing story, for there remains another important aspect waiting to be explored. I'm still going over that day in my mind like the frames of an old movie. A chance encounter between seemingly two completely different worlds turned into something incredible. A homeless man sitting on the cold sidewalk and Elon Musk suddenly appearing next to him. This picture is etched in my memory. I, an outside observer, was struck not so much by the request for $1, but by the response that followed. Not a handout, but an offer of a helping hand, a chance to be grasped. I did not realize at the time how much this meeting would change the lives of both of them. I watched the homeless man stare, first in disbelief and then with growing interest, at the screen of the phone Musk held out to him. I felt the air around me fill with a special energy, as if something new was being born. And so, after some time, I met this man again. But it was not the haggard beggar I had seen the first time. He was neatly dressed, his eyes were burning with enthusiasm. He told me about the projects he was involved in, about the plans he was making. This metamorphosis struck me to the core. From a small, seemingly insignificant request grew an entire story. A story about compassion, about faith in human potential, about how even the most hopeless situations can give birth to something beautiful. The world, it turns out, is full of surprises, and sometimes all it takes is an outstretched hand to change someone's fate. I still have the feeling that I witnessed more than just a chance encounter. It was a lesson, a reminder that even the smallest actions can have huge consequences. And I'm still pondering the invisible thread that connected these two and how that connection has impacted their lives. What depth lurks in this story, and how one act can change not only a particular person's life, but also our overall view of the possibilities lurking behind that moment. And so, as I watched this change, as a spark of hope rekindled an extinguished flame, I thought about how often we pass by those whose lives seem frozen in a gray fog of despair. How often we toss a coin and think we are performing an act of mercy, not realizing that true compassion lies in giving opportunity, in believing in the potential dormant in each person. This day showed me that kindness can take the most unexpected forms, that it is not always about material help, but sometimes it is about a wise nudge, about opening doors that previously seemed tightly closed. After all, Elon Musk did not just give $1, he gave something much more. He gave a chance to believe in yourself, in your strength, in the possibility to change your destiny. And this meeting, this seemingly random dialogue, became the catalyst for a chain of events that transformed the life of one man, and maybe not only him. And this is probably the most important thing, the realization that each of us can become such a catalyst, that our faith and support can work real miracles. We should not be afraid to lend a helping hand, but we should not deprive people of the opportunity to build their own lives. True help is not a handout, but an investment in human potential. This story tells us that even in the most hopeless situations, there is room for a miracle, for an unexpected turn, for rising from the ashes like the phoenix bird. And this miracle begins with our choice, with our decision not to pass by, but to act, to believe, to support. Because maybe we will be the push, the chance that will turn someone's life around. And as I think about this, I cannot help but think that there is another facet of this story waiting to be discovered.